a link to David Harrop because he thought it's on Zoom.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
I can.
I just got his note.
Do I have his email?
Yes, I think he got in touch with you a few days ago.
Okay, I'll try to do that in a minute after you will. But let me see, how do I spotlight? Yes. So okay. Okay, so what I would say before we start maybe is that well, people at home online, please just make sure that you are muted during the presentation, but and ideally you can write questions or comments through the chat, and I'll try to look through these. We are very happy to have with us Dr. Ziad Faraj, who is a practicing social worker, a scholar, and an educator, who published extensively on social work in Palestine. Your recent book, which I had the title of, was published by Bristol Press in 2022. And do you want to remind us of the title? Apologies, Ziad. Remind us of the title of your book.
I think it was about the social work from resilience to resistance.
Thank you. So the way things will work, Ziad will have some things to say at the beginning, and after that there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. I know that you are mainly interested in having a conversation with us. The time of this lecture is, as everybody is aware, is a very specific time. So we are now more than a year long after the 7th of October. That indeed wasn't the beginning of anything, but maybe just the beginning of this last cycle of violence. I'm sure everyone who is connected to social media have seen, have been bombarded by images of the horror in Gaza and other parts of Palestine. Welcome, come in. And we know that endless observers and human rights individuals and special experts, and including quite a few experts, academic and other experts on genocide, have described what is happening in Gaza as a full-blown genocide. We know that things in other parts of Palestine are also have become much worse during the last year. But we know very little about the implications of those events or those trends, the impact of these on social workers and the work that they can or can't do. And this is why Ziad is here. And maybe I'll stop here and I'll clear the stage for you, Ziad. I'll stand here and I'll try to ensure that you get to know about those questions or comments. There are about 15 people in this room here with me, and there are about 30 people online from throughout the UK. There are more people coming in. So we are, without further ado, Ziad, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm delighted really to be with you. Um, and I'd love to have, I wish I could have some introduction about the people around who are with us now. Uh, in order to overcome the difficulty for me to understand and to take into consideration what are the different expectations from the people here, what they would like to know, what exactly are their expectations from this relatively speaking short meeting or presentation and discussion. Uh, as I told you, Yohai, that one of the challenges in this meeting that I didn't have a clue about what exactly expected to speak about other than social work in the context of a war zone. Um, because really in Palestine, we have a lot to speak about and discuss with regards to uh, different issues related to social work, education, and practice that we'd love to introduce and bring to the attention of the rest of the world about. Uh, so I prefer to have kind of a brief introduction about the profession and the context to some extent, so we can open the discussion and we can maneuver around different questions and issues. Um, the second issue is that I don't know exactly how much the people in the room here are aware of or have read about Palestine in general and the social work in Palestine, profession in Palestine in particular. However, I would touch upon these issues just swiftly as possible. Uh, Palestine has been under a colonial occupation since 1948, and about 50 years before, the people here and the land have been subject to uh, different types of conflicts and basically settlers movement from different parts of the world to Palestine with the support of the British mandate government here uh, in order to fulfill the Balfour Declaration that was given to the Jewish people on the 1917, November 2nd. Uh, then in 1948, we had this war in Palestine with the Zionist military groups supported by the British government, and they advertised and created the State of Israel here. At that time, about 800,000 Palestinians were obliged to move and leave their villages, about 550 villages destroyed, and about 67% of the population became refugees out of their land, either in the rest of the West Bank or Gaza, or out of Palestine, like in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and other countries. Uh, in order to understand the minute we are passing through now, we need to look at the history, actually. This is just a uh, recommendation I can make for the people to understand the context, because one of the problems of the 7th of October for all Palestinians uh, in front of the rest of the world, that the current war uh, actually didn't start by October 7th. It's been here since 1948 and before. However, in 1971, the first uh, diploma, 2-year diploma program in social work started in East Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, as a response to the need uh, uh, that was pointed down by a Palestinian lady. Her name is Hind al-Husseini, who wanted to help the refugees families in Jerusalem who became refugees, and they left their villages in Jerusalem area to the old city. The program meant to help these families through helping their daughters by establishing a 2-year diploma in social work. That was the first program in social work in Palestine in 1971. Then the same program became developed and became part of Al-Quds University, called Hind Al-Husseini College, in 1983. But in 1974, 3 years after the establishment of this 2-year program in Jerusalem, we had the first bachelor degree in social work in Bethlehem University, which is very close to Jerusalem. Then in 1983, the Al-Quds University established its 4-year program, again upgraded from 2 years to 4 years. Then the Open University, Al-Quds Open University, in 1992, almost started the social work program, the first social work program, first degree, in the rest of the West Bank and Gaza. There is a clear path, development path of the social work education system in Palestine. Parallel to that, uh, I would say tens of Palestinian charitable societies existed before 1967 under the Jordanian law, that since the West Bank became under the governance of the Jordanian government, and Gaza became under the governance of Egyptian government after the war of 1956. The charitable societies in the West Bank and Gaza were established and regulated by different two laws, by the Egyptian and the Jordanian. But between 1956 and 1967, some charitable organizations were established, limited number, controlled by the political systems of the Jordanian government and the Egyptian government. When the West Bank again and Gaza became under the colonial occupation of Israel after the war of 1967, all these charitable societies became under the control of the Israeli civil government, direct control. But the same eligibility criteria for social welfare services just copied and paste from the Jordanian government to the Israeli. Nothing changed almost. Now, in 1971, one of the Palestinians who was asked to establish this social work program in 1971, who used to work in the uh, Ministry of Social Affairs in Jerusalem, to help this program, to help in developing this 2-year program in East Jerusalem, the old city. Um, the number of charitable societies remained under control because it is licensed all the time and monitored by the occupation authority. Now, in 1994, when the Oslo Agreement was signed with the PLO, between Israel and PLO and the Palestinian Authority established at that time and became responsible for the civil administration, the number of charitable societies just tripled, or I don't know, it jumped massively because all unrecognized charitable groups just became licensed and established as organizations. So from, I would say, couple of uh, tens or hundreds of charitable societies in the West Bank jumped to thousands between 1994 to 2007, according to some statistics conducted. These charitable societies uh, was not introduced properly to the social work education programs in the universities, despite of the parallel time of the establishment of the two lines. Now, over time, mainly during the early, uh, the first decade of the millennium, that um, more emphasis became necessary on the role of the social workers, on charitable societies, NGOs, particularly with the funding came from the international agencies who brought their programs and their funds with the role of the social workers described by the program itself. So charitable societies and NGOs, I would say, started to recognize gradually the role of the social workers within their programs. Till now, it becomes like very essential in most of the social interventions, whether by the government or by the public sector. Now, given that there is a lot of behind this just simple picture, uh, very important issues that we are encountering now, I would just raise two issues in that regard. One regarding with regards to the social work education itself, and the other one with regards to the social services and social work practice. For the social work education, I would say in the West Bank there are three universities and one 2-year diploma uh, grants social work degree, the first degree and the 2-year diploma. In Gaza, there are three universities providing this first degree in social work. Now, the problem with the curriculum and with the social work education, basically, I won't go into depth in that. It's Eurocentric and westernized kind of curriculum. It's imported from different international universities. And I would say it's delinked from the context of the conflict and the socioeconomic context in Palestine for one good reason, which is the lack of research that feeds into the social work education, which means that there is a gap between what is practiced and what is taught. In fact, this is as simple as possible, I would make it. Despite the fact that the students in the third and fourth year of the degree, they go to a field practicum or field practice, 4 courses almost. The students learn from the practice more than they learn at the university classes. And they start with the conflict of the identity. What is taught to us is different what we are practicing in this charitable societies and NGOs and with the community or with the individuals. So I would say the social work education system is sitting up there, and to some extent, the great extent, it's like it's dealing from the practice on the ground, and there is no learning process, I would say, and research to inform the education. This is one issue, big issue for the social work education in Palestine. On the practice level, how I would make it simple. In 1994, following the Oslo Agreement, there was a conference, like in 1995, I think, for the all international donors who wanted to, as part of the political agenda of the so-called peace building in Palestine, all international agencies, the big donors, agreed on flooding Palestine with their money with the conditions of different, like political and programmatic conditions, to give charitable societies and NGOs in Palestine for one critical and important reason, which is to absorb and focus on youth movement in Palestine and I would say pull the youth sector away from the engagement in the political act. That's why youth programs between 1994 to 2010, I would say, focused on engaging youth in different massive, comprehensive activities, recreational activities, training, capacity building, all these things. The purpose was to replace the motivation of volunteerism and social activism of youth and their engagement in the political cause, to engage them, to replace that motive with the more materialized motive for volunteerism. Practically saying that uh, thousands of youth in Bethlehem area or Ramallah or Jerusalem just invited to be engaged in recreational activity, capacity building activities funded by donors in fancy hotels, workshops, feeding them, taking them into trips inside the country and outside, and giving them pocket money to replace the motive, not as a Palestinian to be engaged in this activity for the commitment of supreme values of community, resilience, etc. It's just for me to be entertained and find and entertain myself and learn something, get a certificate, and be engaged in or introduced to the labor market and build my own projects and linking them into that cycle. To the extent that I remember one of the villages in Palestine, one of the cities called Salfit. This area, people there was pioneering the voluntary work movement before 1994. In 2010, if you came to the street with an invitation for the youth to come and engage in a street cleaning or a neighborhood cleaning, they would prefer to stay in the coffee shop rather than coming to because if you don't give them the pocket money, they won't be uh, responding to you or coming with you. That was the whole purpose behind the donors' money between 1995 and 2005 or 2010. They succeeded to the great extent until people started suffering and noticing clearly that volunteerism, which is a very crucial value to the Palestinian society, has been damaged, and the community coherence uh, damaged by the donor's money because it's conditional. What I mean by conditional is if you want to get a grant from, I don't know, name it, one of the agencies, you need to sign a certificate anti-terrorism saying that you are responsible for, as a grantee, spending the money without benefiting a person or a family that has a member been in prison or been killed or joined an activity against occupation whatsoever. And if you need to go to the definition of terrorism, you go to this link and you find names of individuals, organizations, political parties. In that process, you have a vetting step that if I have a workshop for a group of women, I should submit their names, including the facilitator, the trainer, to the donor, who check who checks the names if their families or one of their families, member of their families, being in jail or something like, and this person would not be engaged in that activity, or the entire grant will be suspended. This kind of process. So um, nowadays, what is the link between that and what we are encountering now? Now, most of the Palestinian NGOs, mainly, and many of the charitable society or civil society organizations became totally dependent on donors over those years. Donors' money. Uh, in fact, they benefited a lot in terms of having their premises, in terms of professionals hired, all volunteers being paid by money to be engaged as volunteers, but actually they are not volunteers. They are coming to get some money in their pocket just to be here doing part of this activity or that. Instead, given the deteriorating economic situation in the occupied territories and the increased poverty rates and unemployment rates, because the entire local economy of Palestine being annexed to the Israeli economy. Uh, and it just needed one order by a military leadership in Israel to close the borders, and the entire population cannot work on that day and get their jobs in building settlements or building or being in factories, Israeli factories, whatsoever. So poverty rate is just in the hands of the Israeli economy. Given that youth are not welcome to come to Israel to places, so they are totally dependent to feed their families by getting this pocket money every daily volunteering. This was important to understand simply how uh, they dragged youth from being engaged in the, I would say, national liberation movement to be part of connected to the economy uh, market and having some money back to their home instead of going to any activity like demonstrations or confrontations or whatsoever. And these days, during the war, 90 or more than 90% of the population in Gaza do not have any access to any workplace and they don't have any income. Uh, in the West Bank, which is a bit lighter, the situation, I would say, in terms of emergencies, the rate of the unemployment raised to about 40% of the workforce become unemployed. Poverty rate is much higher, actually, than that. Um, so at the same time, with this socioeconomic deterioration in the West Bank and Gaza, NGOs who are totally dependent on donors' money had to turn over the contracts of the majority of their staff because they didn't receive the donors' money during the last year, which is contrary to different similar, I would say, emergency situations like in 2000, the second Intifada, the second uprising, or the first uprising between 1987 and 1994, where the donors brought their money to help people for humanitarian assistance. But now the donors deliberately are not allowed to transfer any money if they want, even in the first place, to the Palestinian banks or to the accounts of the Palestinian NGOs or CBOs. So uh, most of the NGOs either close their doors or they turn their staff home, closed their contracts, terminated them, uh, including social workers. Now, in 2000, year 2000, 2002, one of the statistics, quick statistics I've had carried out with all universities, the second unemployment rate among university graduates was among social work graduates after those who are studying law were like on the top of that. Now, with the increased number of social work graduates, and closed or no opportunities for them to be employed, they have no jobs. This came at the expense of the value and the status of the profession within the community. In the first Intifada and the second Intifada, with the donors' money uh, and the rise in the number of the employment opportunities for social workers, the status of the profession uh, just stepped up. With these last year or even before, it stepped down because of the donors' money and the increase of the number of social work graduates, particularly with the new liberal education system that accompanied the Oslo Agreement. Most of the universities are after the number of new students and paying them money and who like get this financial support, they can join the university and they study social work because social workers can get jobs in the market at those years. But then after They didn't care about their employment opportunities. They just counting numbers and getting the money from the students, no matter how they will benefit after graduation, whether they have an employment opportunities or not. So uh, hundreds of thousands of, I would say tens of thousands of social worker graduates unemployed, and nobody wants to send his daughter or son to the university to study. What, social work? I would pay all the fees for 4 years and then I get nothing out of that. So we are in I would say now, lowest level of the status for the social work profession in Palestine. This is in general. Now, the last thing I would raise here is that universities, they don't have a unified kind of curriculum of social work. And the different practices in different sectors like public and non and voluntary services, they are not in harmony in terms of the mission for this profession and the vision of this profession in Palestine. In Gaza, it's different than the West Bank, and the West Bank is different than those who have practice or education and practicing in East Jerusalem, the Jerusalem Palestinians living in Jerusalem. Like we have a shattered kind of identity of the profession in Palestine, despite the fact we have been working on establishing the Union of Social Workers since 1997. But so far, the union is not able to, again, because lack of the research and the freedom of communication and movement and gatherings, etc. They cannot establish a vision and a unified professional identity for the profession in place. Lots of challenges in all these, between all these levels, and within the same level, you have lots of challenges and issues to be discussed. I'll stop there. It's just I threw all, I tried to pull different things in order to have people hopefully get kind of different pieces of the picture. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you, Ziad. Maybe I have a first sort of immediate question. Maybe help us understand, if you can, what does it mean to be, well, we know that social work is often a profession that is subservient to the powers of governments, and often is trying to challenge and contest or work against these powers. But I'm wondering what is it like in a warlike situation, or occupation ongoing, for many decades. But from your current reality, what does it mean to be a social worker in this constellation? What is the freedom that you are afforded? What are the limitations? What are the things that you need to be, that you can and you can't do?
Hmm. Well, the most traditional argument about the different schools of thoughts in social work. Again, there are two schools of thought. One is the traditional, which is uh, that the job of the social worker is to maintain the status quo of the system, the political system, and serving the people according to their merits, given and provided by the instructions designed by the government or the public sector. Like the level of poverty, the size of the family, I don't know, the end level of income, all these And there is like different groups under these criteria, this set criteria like persons with disabilities, widows, elderly, etc. And the services provided to these people are just in silos, proper, pre-designed, not flexible enough to respond to the needs of the families, the actual needs. It's just if your family is like three persons, you get 200 shekels. If it is five members, you get 700, etc. And you get some food. You get regularly for 1 year. That's it. Uh, this is provided by the government all the time. Now, and within the Palestinian Ministry of Social Development, there are some protection programs for women, for children, and elderly, which is under the Palestinian law. And the social workers do the protection social workers, they do their job according to the Palestinian law as well. But they cannot, even if they noticed and observed an internal situation of a family that is connected to the political and security conditions, they cannot do anything. They cannot interfere in that, which is actually most of the situation in Palestine is directly and deeply affected by the uh, practices, the daily practices of the occupation. For example, we have the apartheid wall, which is about cutting, have eaten 730 kilometers long from the West Bank area, splitting villages and people even from their schools, from their land, from their workplaces, from traveling from between one village. For example, a family, one of the families up in the north, if they want to go during the Eid, the feast, to visit their daughter, like up in Jenin, they have to come down to Bethlehem and cross the checkpoint and get back to their family up in the north in order to go around the wall. This kind of suffering, like find pupils getting to their schools through the holes in the wall in order to get their school. All these villages like cut from the middle between where the people live and what their basic services are located on the other side of the wall. Another example, we have in the West Bank, according to OCHA, about 850 checkpoints inside the West Bank alone, only in the West Bank. What means a checkpoint? Checkpoint, it's not just searching you, it's banning you or forbidding you from moving from one area to another if you are older than or younger than, I don't know, 20-year-old, if you are going to your university from one city to another, if you are whatever the situation, all these checkpoints are controlling the people and trade movement between the areas, which is hindering the daily life. Tomorrow, I need to go to, since 3, 4 months, I didn't do that trip. I need to go to a first consultancy job up in the north. I'm just worried. I cannot reach from Bethlehem to Selfit area, which is up in the north. It would take me 3, 4 hours. And in fact, in regular situation, takes me 35 minutes. Maybe I can't reach it even to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning in order to reach a meeting to attend a meeting at 11. Today I was talking to them, don't wake me. Definitely I may not come, or I may reach you at late time, or I don't know what will happen on the road. While it's in, I checked all these distances and how much time it takes during the coronavirus pandemic, because I had the freedom to move while all the people are in their houses, and I could measure in on my watch how long does it take. So when I moved from Bethlehem to Ramallah, for example, on daily basis, it is 35 minutes. But well, after the corona or before the corona, uh, uh, it is 3 hours and a half
That's because the checkpoints.
because of the checkpoints. Because of the checkpoints, and sometimes I had to go back to Bethlehem to my house after 9 o'clock, 9:30. It's not useless. I can't go and reach Ramallah at 11 and leave from at 3. Then I reach home back at 7 o'clock in the evening. I spend most of my time on the road. How about the workers? How about the students? How about other people? So it's choking people the quality of life on daily basis, on hourly basis. Between Bethlehem and Hebron, it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Yesterday, one of my colleagues, it took him 4 hours to just to cross from Hebron to Bethlehem. So he's a professional. He is from Jenin, and he was traveling from Hebron to Jenin. It took him the whole day to go back home while he was doing his job. So it's how I would say, social work in Palestine, even if you are qualified, even if you are in a best setup in your organization, you are well paid maybe, which is not the fact. Uh, y- you cannot do your job. This is in the West Bank. In Gaza, there is no office, no car, no streets, nothing. You cannot do anything. There is no jobs, no funding to any job, nothing. Social work is just totally crippled, like many other professions in Gaza. Uh, it's just inhuman, total inhuman Gaza. And the West Bank is suffering, but there is some kind of what you can do, even if it takes you the whole day. Finally, you do 2 hours, 3 hours work, you can serve some people. But in those in Gaza, you cannot do anything. I asked a colleague from Gaza, who is a social worker and educator as well, to record a video for me to present to this discussion, but was like bad quality because there is no internet to send or to record using the network of the mobile phones. But I have it finally, but needed translation actually in English. But it's telling there is no education system, not only for pupils or school students, but also for universities. All universities almost demolished. Uh, Her husband was killed while they bombarded one of the universities where he used to teach. He was killed, and the whole family, she is a professor at the university, and the whole family is in the tents in the streets now. So you cannot speak about social work and the quality of social work education or practice in a situation like in Gaza. A humanitarian is not provided. They are freezing in their tents in these conditions, and nobody can help them. They don't have anything to wear in their food. Uh, and the West Bank is much better than Gaza, yet very hard to do your job as a social worker in these conditions. Even if you go to your office, you cannot go to the next area, the next village. You cannot access your clients. You cannot do home visits easily, because if you want to plan a home visit, like from your office in Bethlehem to a village of Bethlehem, you need to cross different checkpoints, and you may get back late, or and the families cannot come to you to your offices because they cannot either afford the expenses because they are poor enough. They don't have any income, and they cannot have an access to you because of the checkpoints. So it's the relationships between the helping process is just damaged, either in the West Bank relatively, but damaged totally. in Gaza.
Thank you. I'm mindful of the time, and so maybe we should open this for questions from the audience here or the audience at home. Are there any questions? Let's start with you people here. And yes, Maria.
Ziad, this is Maria Castrinou. I'm an anthropologist here, and I'm here with my class that we're doing an anthropology of the Middle East. And so we've been learning a lot about Palestine. We've been learning a lot about the occupation. And today's theme was martyrdom. And we were reading Abu Farah's ethnography. Maybe you cannot see us.
I'm trying to do something with this, but I'll try to adjust for you to.
I found incredibly interesting what you said about the international donors and how they are trying to basically do the back work of security agencies by trying to instill somehow individualist and money-oriented kind of shackles to the youth. And having read and encountered this very rich ethnographic anthropological work on kind of how bodies live and dead are abused by the Israeli occupation, but also the kind of rich meaning and rich social relations that are in Palestine. To me, this seems like a huge contradiction. So I wonder how successful have actually these donors been in actually divorcing the youth from the kind of the everyday realities of both the occupation that might make life nearly impossible, but also the richness of social life that has endured despite the occupation, despite the continuing war for more than 80 years to social existence and the sociality. So what kinds of youth and sociality is there despite all your problems?
All right. Now, okay, it's important to distinguish between three categories of service providers, I would say, in the country, in Palestine. One is the NGOs, which is part of the civil society organizations who get a good opportunity to partner with different donors, and they provided them with a lot of money to establish their offices and hire professionals and release different programs for youth, for women, for different sectors according to donors' agenda. Now, this is the least in the number, in the size that they represent in the civil society sector, but they are the richest because of the donors' money pumped into their pockets. So we have maybe 30, 40 big NGOs in Palestine who get most of the donors' money because they comply with their conditions, either political conditions or programmatic conditions. What I mean by programmatic conditions, which is even much worse than even the political, if the CEDA Canada wants to give for the next 5 years some millions to Palestine, they prioritize not only the sector they want to focus on, but also the methodology, the techniques, the theories of change they want to apply in Palestine, regardless of the needs and the cultural context of the women in Palestine. So they come to a village and teach women or train women in a village how to express themselves regardless of the social fabric and the traditions of that village. This brought a protest from the males and the husbands, etc., and brought a conflict to the community. This is just a simple oversimplified kind of example. So they don't care about what change actually on ground may take place, but they focus on how much they spend on the operational expenses, the staffing, etc. The second group of service providers, which is like much larger than the NGO sector, which is the CBOs, community-based organizations, which is which has become between 1995 to 2010 more dependent on the donors' money, but with a little money, like annually $30,000 or $50,000 every CBO may help them fund the staffing of 2 or 3 professionals, conduct some activities here and there, have some infrastructure, technical infrastructure for their offices. And these CBOs, uh, with the deteriorated economic situation of the community, they cannot rely anymore on the local resources and the donations from the people themselves, from the community itself. So they became gradually, over time, dependent on these little money given from donors, to the extent that in 2005, I remember, in 2005, when the USAID and the European Union tried to impose this anti-terrorism certificate, and these CBOs, because they are more close to the political parties and political activism, they try to refuse the complying to these grants conditions. Many of them had to close their offices and go home. They couldn't resume their mission. They closed down. Others survived because they again accepted the conditions of the donors, technical and political conditions. Now, the third category, which may respond to your question now, which is the grassroots organization movement. Those totally dependent on volunteerism and totally dependent on participants from the local community with minimal operational costs. Actually, the current situation where the donors, international donors, are not allowed to give money to the Palestinian government, to the Palestinian NGOs, to the Palestinian CBOs, to whoever, the most active part of the civil society who can reach out and mobilize the community is the grassroots organizations who are totally dependent, to the great extent, I would say, on volunteerism and little resources from the local community. They are more sustainable than the donors, those who were totally dependent on donors. And now they are doing a good job. Unfortunately, these grassroots organizations are subject to uh, being excluded from the donors' agenda or targets because of their political activism and orientation. They are chased by the Israeli intelligence, and any youth is engaged in there is under the surveillance. Who is there and what they are talking about, why they are doing this voluntary work, why they are doing this trip, how they are doing this activity, where did they get the money. And I know very close these organizations, but actually they have the capacity to mobilize truly the entire community because of the trust they succeeded to establish with the local community. Local community in Palestine became very much aware about the agenda of the local NGOs and many of the CBOs who brought the donors' money, and now the community just abandoned their activities because it's donated and funded by external agendas, because the Palestinian society in general is very polarized about the political situation. Like children are political activists in Palestine, not the well-educated people, because we are eating, breathing, sleeping with politics in Palestine 24 hours. Our children wake up in a village or in a camp or a city of the incursions, on daily incursions in any place in the West Bank. So the children and their parents and their brothers and sisters, they are aware of the presence of the soldiers in their roofs, in their rooms, in their schools, in their streets. So they became politically aware without reading a book about it. So they are, by that process, they became very connected, very much connected with the grassroots organizations that speak the same language, that makes very simple activities. The purpose of the daily activities of grassroots, all grassroots in the West Bank, is to maintain the community coherence, to revitalize volunteerism, to help people come together again. That's why people, the poorest and the marginalized, trust these grassroots organizations a lot, and they just they don't need fancy food in order to come to an activity. They just come and spend a few hours doing this activity and go back home. In this very difficult situation, like what we have been through over the last year, where there is no donors' money, the only active, uh, I would say, community service provider is the grassroots organizations in the cities and the villages and the refugees camps in the West Bank, I would say. So it's, but in terms of social work, it is still standing there in a distance and watching this happening and cannot teach anything about the situation and how to do their social work. In one of the grassroots organizations that I'm managing in the Asia camp, I'm just the chair of the board, and established this in 2010, called LAYLAC, the Palestinian Youth Action Center for Community Development. It's a grassroots organization, one of the best organization providing, grassroots organization providing the best quality of community practice for social work students when they come from Sweden or they come from Bethlehem University. They just learn how the process works, and they learn a lot that they haven't heard about from the university itself. So, yes, we are trying to give a hand to our community through these grassroots, as well as saving what we can save from the educational process to reflect the community needs, to reflect the contextual situation, the socioeconomic and cultural context, and help students learn more about how to cater the local situation within their standardized kind of intervention at community level.
Great.
I hope I responded to your question.
Yes, thank you. I can see that there is a question from Deidre. Do you want to unmute yourself, Deidre? Is it Deidre?
Hello,
Yes.
yeah, it's me. Hi there. My name's Deirdre. I'm one of Yohai's old students, actually. I'm a social worker in one of the London boroughs. I work with adults. So I've got maybe a three-part question, really. So the first one is, I'm curious to know, as a social worker, you've told us a little bit about what your day looks like and your difficulties with getting past checkpoints. So who are the people on your caseload? Is it adults you deal with, children? And how do you provide support? I heard that you tap into NGOs to get some funding for them. And as a fellow social worker, and desperately we look on and want to be helpful, is there anything that we can do, in your opinion, that we can actually be practical and provide support and help? I heard you talk about some of the grassroots organisations, and you mentioned one. But are there any other grassroots organisations that you would direct us to point to support or raise awareness for?
All right. For your first part, in the public and through the Ministry of Social Development, there are programs directed to child protection, and they provide child protection services, again, to a limited extent because of the law. On one hand, it's limiting the hands, or like restricting the level of or the extent to which they can intervene in the family situation. The second is the services. You can refer a child to a center for protection, or I don't know what you can do, but you cannot help the poverty of the family. You cannot look at the child and in isolation from the situation of the family. Sometimes the violence inside the family is very much related to the level of poverty, to the parent, to the father who is in prison, to the big brother who has been arrested last night, and the mother who is doing her job to feed her family, and the child is in the street begging and selling some tissues on the street and leaving the school. This is against the law in the surface value, the face value. But actually, if you go to the family, you need to help the family fix its income and relocate the different positions inside the family, so the mother can do her job and the father can do his job and the older brother do this. You are not talking about the child problem away from the different issues or challenges in encountering the family structure, very simple structure. Um, in my office here, I'm like on the crossroad between Bethlehem and Beit Jala, and the traffic light. In the morning, I found many children have left their schools just to sell, I don't know what kind of items, to bring some money to their family while they are out of the school. This is against the law. They should be in the school. But if they go to school, if you oblige them to go to school as a protection social worker, for example, you need to provide them with an alternative to feed their families. They are sent by their parents or their mother or their father because they cannot get to the job or they have no job. To provide the family with the decent minimums income, you need fund from the government. The government is not getting any money from or any revenues from the taxes that is just under the control of the Israelis, should pass through the Israeli banks, or the donors cannot give the Palestinian Authority because conditional to penalize the government because it is not supporting, I don't know what, in the peace process. So the family paying the bill, actually, and the child in the street. This is how you can link it and look at it. It's just the simple chain. The other chain, the other level is the voluntary sector. There are lots of Palestinian NGOs and CBOs working with children or with women or with elderly or with youth. But these CBOs, again, have been totally dependent to different extent, but many of them dependent on the donors' money that is conditional. If I don't know, the Save the Children, for example, it has a grant to CBO in Bethlehem area, and they apply a specific psychosocial intervention with a battered woman. They do it the way the Save the Children want, according to the School of Social Work, clinical school in Baltimore. I don't know where. So, but not, and if you notice as social worker or psychologist, that the problem or this problem within this family with this lady or girl, you cannot interfere out of the box that you are employed in by the Save the Children or the CBO that is receiving funding from this, the Save the Children. So you are bounded as a social worker by different levels of restrictions. So the service, the quality of the service that reaches or delivered to the end user is not what is needed by the person or the intended person or the client, because of the donor's money, because of donors' technical conditions, because of the capacity of the social workers, because they are not trained properly to do this job. They are just getting the job and doing what they are following the instructions. So it's not uh, if they get the money in the first place from the donor. If they don't, you don't have this number of social workers funded jobs to reach all the children in the streets or in the school, in the schools or in the kindergartens or inside the families. So it's complicated. Uh, why? You should abide by the Palestinian child protection law, for example, but you cannot apply it because you didn't have the resources. Tomorrow I have an interview myself for one organization in Hebron area called the House of uh, Palestinian Children. It's a protection service, and they needed a manager of the different programs. I'm thinking how they can manage their programs while they don't have the money, how they can provide for example a protection service and to a child in C zone area where the Palestinian police are not allowed to reach the family, or they cannot apply their law. How they can protect children in the 60% of the population living in 60% of the West Bank, which is C zone, where the Palestinian Authority has no authority there. How to protect them? And the social worker needs to, other than the social worker needs this number of hours to reach the family and to make an intervention and to go for different visits, or to have a child and or call a police to take a child out of a violent condition or whatever. So it's difficult. The logistical security uh, situation also is crippling the interventions and not helping people, the professionals, if they are qualified enough, even to deliver what they should deliver. Yes, there are some organizations that they are helping children at the grassroots level and CBO's level even. But again, that they are not, they have no donors' money, but they have Palestinian individuals under the philanthropic kind of interventions or motivations. And in the early months of after October 7th, I know some organizations they couldn't cover. They have a list of children who are uh, uh, they are they have the custodies by other families or by other individuals in the West Bank, but custodians cannot afford money anymore to pay through these organizations. So the organization started to excuse themselves after some years of work from being able to to pay the monthly allowances, because the donor or the custodian cannot pay anymore, because everyone has like empty pockets after this political and economic crisis. Um, so yes, there are organizations interested to the extent that from this idea that the situation totally in Palestine has collapsed, with some colleagues from the UK that I know and friends, graduates from University of Birmingham, we wanted to establish an international Palestinian, international Palestinian uh, protection network organization uh, to be located and registered in the UK. But because, but because, again, because it's in the name of, and the title of this network is Palestine, all the banks so far, since February, last February, we couldn't have or have not been allowed to establish or to start a bank account as a precondition for establishing the network. They just kept us like in circles and circles and circles. And finally, they said after 2-3 months, they said no. HSBC and other banks, they refused to give us a bank account because it's precondition for registering a charity in the UK. You have a bank account, then you establish a registered charity. But the banks are like the wall that pushed us back, which is just to help the children that have been abandoned by the custodians in the West Bank that I know. So we are going in rounds and rounds and rounds, and we cannot get help because all the people, the custodian and the child, are poor now. Who can that's why the idea is the international network. People from UK and Greece and other places can give them, and they are not part of the crisis here. So they can give the donation, but they cannot get the donation to the bank because we have no bank account. You see what I mean? This is entire political dilemma and security dilemma we are strangled by. But yes, we still have channels and ways, and I think Hakak uh, got the link for some donations, and you can
I
use that.
yes, I shared the link to the GoFundMe for the International Palestinian Child Protection Network. So this is one thing. I can see that there is another raised hand. Bim, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question that you have? But maybe before that, I know I got a message that we have 5 more minutes for the Teams meeting. I hope they will not stop it, but well, if they will stop it after at past, that people will just understand why. I don't think it should happen. It doesn't, but okay. So there are more questions. You know, anyone who needs to leave obviously will leave, but there are more questions from people at home. Bim, go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you, Yohai. I'll be very quick. It's great listening to you, Dr. Faraz, and very insightful. So I do, kind of understand, the value the grassroots level organization bring to the communities, and not to the scale that you mentioned. I have some experience working in the UK, and I'm interested in community development, and also to empower those kind of small organizations to do more. So I'm looking at doing maybe, I don't know, my PhD in community development, particularly focusing on these smaller organizations. So I'm kind of like, I've been thinking in my head, like, is it possible for me to maybe go and work alongside these organizations in Palestine and do my sort of learning, and I can kind of relate here as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
You can. You are most welcome. Not only you, any one of you, any one of your friends doing social work is invited and can come to us and do the job and do the research, do whatever you want to do. We have a grassroots organization inside the community. You can stay with the organization or with a family even, and do what you want to do. See what you want to see, what you are anxious to explore. You are most welcome. We
Yeah.
have, by the way, we have uh, strategic partnerships with different universities in 5 countries like uh, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Spain, and US, who sent their students to us in the Asia camp in Bethlehem, who do their social work, community practice, and do what they want, and learn a lot about it, and go back, etc. The only not the only, one of the countries that would love to have students from is the UK. While I was in Birmingham, I tried this, but still the university is not like in that mood kind of policy to do it. But it's up to you. If you can do it from your side, we are just open to that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Are there any more questions from people at home? I saw that there was a comment about wanting to come and visit, but you've answered that. You've invited anyone who is interested, so that's great. Are there any other questions from anyone at home? Okay, so yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to ask how we get in contact. I'm a social worker. I work in adult mental health services. I'm also an international officer with Unison. And in 2010 or 11, we did a trade union delegation visit to the occupied Palestinian territories.
Oh,
I
really?
visited Gaza. Yeah, we visited Defense of Children International in Hebron, and we
Yes.
visited
Oh,
other places, and exactly what you said about the checkpoints. For example, our trade union guide was not allowed into Jerusalem. We had to leave him behind in Bethlehem. It's only 20 minutes away from what I remember, but then we
yes.
saw Celia. So now that I've reconnected with the union in my capacity as an international officer in the branch, I've also had contact with some of the social workers in West Bank as well. So I wanted to update my knowledge and what's happening and the challenges you face as practitioners and how you develop and build your own resilience, because you're also living the consequences of the occupation.
Yes.
Palestine is not a charity case. It's in this situation because of the occupation. And it wouldn't be a charity case. It wouldn't be in this position. So, yeah, I really would like to have some contact, maybe after this meeting or some way of contacting. I've emailed Yohai with my contact details.
Good.
I will
Good. My
connect you.
contact. Yeah,
Yeah, I will
my
connect
contact
you.
details is with Yohai, and you are most welcome to talk, to be provided with all needed information, to visit and to do. We are quite open for your questions and missions.
We'd really like to make that contact. My name is Saida, by the way. I didn't mention my name. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Saida, when did you email me?
Just about 10 minutes ago, probably.
I'm looking at my email. I can't.
Okay, I'll give you my email address. It's sahida@hotmail.co.uk. It's quite simple.
Can you write it at the chat in the
Yes,
chat
sure.
box? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any more questions from anyone?
I just wanted to say I'm really, really grateful I attended this talk with
Thank
Ziad.
you.
I'm so honoured and touched to hear this, especially it's more poignant now. So thank you.
Thank you, Shahida, because from my personal experience, when I talk about Palestine, it's different from with the people who never been here and some people who had the chance to visit the country, because no matter how you speak about it, you cannot get the clear picture, the real picture about the situation unless you've been to the country at least once. To the extent that I sometimes say to the internationals, if they visit Palestine, now they are infected by Palestine virus. They come back and come back and come back and come back. They cannot, I wouldn't say loved, but they are very well connected and they are anxious to come back and explore more and be with the people. And no conference, no book can describe the situation here.
Great. Any final questions from anyone at home? Okay, so I'm sure you'll join me in saying thank you to Ziad for taking the time and sharing his thoughts and ideas. Ziad, as I told you, we would like to hold more events and more sessions like this. So we'll be in touch and think about who else we can invite, because we want to pay more attention to what is happening in Palestine and what it is that we can do to help or support. So again, thank you very much, and thank you to all those who joined us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope we can
Thank
meet
you.
in the future.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. And we wish you all the best, Ziad. Thank you.
Same
Yeah.
to you. Thank you.
Thank you for staying. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I'd be interested to do some follow-up with that.
Yeah.
That's possible. I'll speak
Of
to
course.
you at some point.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yes. They can.
Say about the GoFundMe page, because
Yeah.
I mentioned Chauffeur, and I was going to ask if you know, come across Dr. Salimanati before, but he's director of, he's a former UN.
Let me just turn this, leave this, because that's no one is there now.
Yeah, he was